All right, guys, welcome to another Consult ROI podcast. I'm your host, Cameron. We've got Danny here as well.
Hello, hello.
All right, so what we're going to do is talk about kind of a brief recap. So here in Utah, we actually had, two bigger conferences all back to back, and as well as like a bigger networking event. So there was Limitless Arena, which had everybody from Gary V to Bradley to David Goggins to Andy Frisella to we had Tim Grover, we had Ed Mylett, we had Eric Thomas, we had I already said Bradley, Alex Morton, and probably about 6 or 7 others. Even Codie Sanchez and that, which is more about business. So Pace is more real estate, and then Codie is more of like acquiring and rolling up businesses, so more like VC type stuff. But either way, there was a lot of great value that we got from that. And then we did the Solopreneur event, which I actually had the pleasure of speaking at and opening up that conference. So that was talking about achieving the ROI, which we did kind of go over a lot of those topics here in this podcast, which is mapping your mindset and getting consistent results, and then being able to address and let go of the anchors in our past and our life so we can move forward and be able to have the life that we want, to map it out and to, again, get the results that we actually want to achieve. So we could do kind of a brief recap of a lot of that. Tim Grover, I actually got a lot of great candor from him, just as far as the verbiage and how he speaks and what he's doing. So Tim Grover is obviously a very, very big influential coach as far as coaching like NBA players, helping them get breakthroughs, a lot of big prestigious athletes. One of the best things that I got as far as his verbiage anyway was that every new day starts at midnight, right? So everything starts in your darkest hour. Mm-hmm. So, and then basically that whenever we are refusing to acknowledge that darkness in ourselves, it's no different than us it's us pulling up our phone, scrolling on social media, distracting ourselves, binge watching TV, whatever. Our natural defense mechanism constantly goes to that so that we don't have to face the darkness, because it distracts and then basically subdues and suppresses it. So we don't have to address it or be alone with those demons. But the more we do that, the more they persist and the more that they essentially latch onto your ankles and drown you. And so it was talking about be alone, like allow yourself time and opportunity to be alone in the darkness with those demons and face and conquer and overcome, right? Because again, once you overcome those, the moment that you face those demons is usually the start of your new beginning, the start of the new day, start of something better, bigger, greater than what you've had and been settling for. So that to me was extremely powerful, and it also talked about is like why do we allow ourselves to stop harming yourselves with thoughts and actions of others? Everybody's doing stuff that harms themselves, and unless you let the pain go and stop harming yourself, you won't have clarity.
Yeah, and like that's I think that's a big one of what are those voices in your head and who are you wrestling with, right? My younger sister posted the other day, got in a fight with myself over going to the gym this morning. Guess who won? And it was a selfie of herself at the gym. Right. And so it's like you're negotiating with yourself, and even listen to like a lot of different consulting podcasts and stuff. Your biggest negotiation is you negotiating against yourself on what you should put on the freaking proposal of what you're going to send over to somebody, and allow them to negotiate, not you, right? Like it's their opportunity to maybe like, negotiate something to, in what they might deem as a better rate. But it's all those things going on in your mind there of what's going on.
Absolutely. So I talked a lot about this in my podcast or the speech that I gave in that, which is talking about your inner voice, right? It's very easy because that inner voice inside your head is not your friend. Get that very clear. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, your subconscious is your friend. It's the fear that tells you that you shouldn't do something or you shouldn't take that risk or you're uneasy about something. I hate to tell you, but it is your enemy. It is absolutely 100% without a doubt your enemy. And I'll prove it to you. How it works is every single time, like say, for instance, like at the gym, I came up with, I actually use this example then as well. It says when you're running a mile, and especially if you're pushing yourself and at a higher rate or a faster pace than you normally would, you usually start off great, motivated and everything. But then a quarter mile, a half mile or whatever starts and you get to it. And already that voice starts nagging you and says, hey, you don't need to do the full mile. Just do a half mile. You don't need to do that. Just do the quarter. You just like you who's going to care? Like why does it matter? Oh, the treadmill stopped. Oh, that means that's a sign from the universe to just allow yourself to stop. Give yourself more of a break. No. So anytime I hear it, I tell it the voice literally, shut up. Like I'm getting this done. I committed to this. I am my word.
Yeah.
If I don't have my integrity, I don't have anything else. So that's what my push is. And so the voice will go away for a second. 2 seconds later, I start feeling that burning and that in pain, especially if I'm at a dead sprint. Like it's like, nope, you need to knock this off and everything. You need to just call it quits. Maybe you just slow down a little bit on this. Nope, I ain't listening to you and that you're trying to hold me back. And I will listen. And if it talks again, it's like, hey, you tell me you quit one more time. We're running a mile and a quarter. And if we keep it up again, we're running a mile and a half. You keep it up again, we're going to run 2 miles.
Totally taking it military style on yourself there, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's everyone chastises me for this, but this is the same way I raised my kids. And people are like, oh, you're too harsh on them. You're too anything. I'm teaching them hard work and discipline and master yourself. And that. So when they start sitting there complaining and say, I don't want to. Do I have to do the dishes? Do I have to sweep? I don't want to clean my room. I don't want to do that. And it's very easy. And I'm like, hey, fine, great. Because you were complaining about that, I'm giving you another chore. Go wipe down all the doorknobs, clean the walls and that, or wipe the windows down.
Well, now you just
want to complain, and they have to do it right. It's not just half-ass, because they'll, of course, try to go over and it's like clean the fingerprints off or something, and they just smear it. It's like, is that good? Is that done? Is that a good job?
And the thing is, like, they know what a good job is as well, right? They know what the expectation is, when you're going to follow up with it. And it actually reminds me of a quote that a friend of mine has that he posts from time to time, but I think it's from John Shedd originally. A ship is safe in the harbor, but that's not what ships are built for. I totally, murdered that. Let me try it again. A ship in the harbor is safe, but that is not what ships are built for. Right. And so that voice in your head, it's there to kind of keep you safe in the harbor.
Will disagree with you.
Protected and everything there. Yeah. Right. But it's ships aren't built for, being there. And same thing with our bodies and stuff. We've got to overcome that power of the mind to get out and do those things. Right. It's like, a half mile is safe. Half mile is like effort less, dash less. Right. And so you've got to get out there and go that extra mile. And that's what's going to separate you and make the difference.
Well, and this is another thing. So Andy Frisella is like, he's a very, very aggressive, passionate person. There's nothing wrong with that. What I'm saying, but part of his biggest speech was, so when he was flying over the Rocky Mountains and he was looking down and saying, you know what? I think every time they come over here and that I think of the people that came before. I think the people that they had to trudge over the rocks and come over huge obstacles that had never been done before. And do you know what the most influential tool in building America was? What was do you know what the tool was that every single pioneer had?
Most influential tool?
Yeah. What tool did every single wagon have kind of like a base requirement before they ever set out?
Was it grease? Squeaky wheel gets the grease, or was it flour? I don't know.
No, you can make grease in that, whether it's from animal fat or finding like other things. But no, so it was an axe.
An axe, okay.
So the axe is the most monumental tool or most essential tool in building America because it was required to chop down trees to allow you to get through. It was required to chop firewood to keep your family warm. It was required to build your home. It was literally the most vital tool for homesteading and settling the West.
Now you mentioned that, I do recall seeing videos of him with an axe. So, okay, makes sense. Yep, it's coming back to me now.
So with this, and if you take that understanding, we all have axes in our life. And if we don't use that effectively, what will happen is for example, if I take an axe and I just swing it willy-nilly at a tree, every which direction, I'm going to expend a lot of effort and a lot of resources and everything else, not being very effective, not accomplishing anything. So you have to take your energy, your tools, your resources you have, and have laser focus and go exactly in that wedge, right, to cut down the tree in order to accomplish the goal that you want. Because otherwise, again, you're just wasting tons of energy with no results,
right?
Nothing to show for your efforts. And then the other thing is eventually what happens after you've been using your axe for a while?
Oh, it's going to dull.
Yeah, exactly. That is self-awareness. That is the ability to step back and say, hey, my tool no longer works the way it should. My skills have gotten complacent because I haven't been using them or bettering them or amplifying my skill set. So what do I need to do to get that to a honed or sharpened edge? So you take that step back, you hone the edge, and then you can get back to work with greater effectiveness and everything else. But also that is part of learning, like getting into the detrimental learning cycle where you're just sitting there and you're just honing the axe. You could sit there and grind it for all day and all eternity, and all you'll have is at the end is a little stumpy axe, right? Because you ground the entire head off.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
Only need to do enough to get that edge and then get to work.
Right. And so, I mean, it's and so that self-awareness, that self-development, that personal development there, I mean, that's really kind of what everybody's doing at Limitless Arena or the Solopreneur Conference, right? It's taking the time out of doing everything else and being able to help sharpen that, and kind of remind me of that other, famous of Abraham Lincoln, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I'm going to spend the first 4 of them sharpening the axe. And so like, you're going to take that time out to be your best self, to self-development and everything. And then you can show up most effectively with most precision, the sharpest edges to be able to execute the quickest and most effective way.
Absolutely. And granted, this, again, there's a lot of people at these conferences. They only will go to every single conference. That's all they will ever do.
Yep.
And then they struggle. It's like, I don't know why I'm not struggling. Like I'm struggling all the time. And so they're constantly seeking and they feel lost for answers.
Absolutely.
But the other thing too that Andy told or said, and that I was really, I recognized it, but I hadn't given myself time to actually think about what it meant. And that was, your parents right now are too old to be the influence anymore. They are too old to set the example. They are too old to be your mentor anymore. You are the adult right now. You are the new generation that is setting the example. for your kids, for your future generations and everything. You can't rely or look up to them anymore. It is 100% on you. And that is like that, meaning like you can't keep looking to the advice or counsel of your elders and that, because you are the elders now. Like, we can look at our past, right? We can look at what's happened before, but it doesn't change that we have to be the ones that set the example. And I think people too often, what happens is they get complacent and they'd be like, well, somebody else will do that. Somebody else will step up. Somebody else will do that. Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm still too young. My life is just started or whatever else. And that might be true to a certain degree, but it doesn't change that you are an adult now. And thus, people, whether you recognize it or not, are looking to you and the example you're setting.
Yeah, it's so true. And yeah, whether you recognize it or not, and usually when you don't recognize it, they're looking to you, right? They're watching that example and the example that you're setting. And that's a good call out. That you are the next generation of the example setters. Like, it's on your shoulders now. And
yeah, the torch has been passed.
Yep.
Like, granted, we might have an dementia ward for most of our presidency in government. Eventually, we're going to have to take over and clean up that mess. Not somebody else. And I guarantee you, if it is somebody else, then you're not going to like it.
Absolutely.
Because that means some other government has come in, and they've taken the responsibility, and they're going to dictate how you are going to live your life. And if you don't believe me, if you think that's conspiracy, then clearly you failed history. Look at how Rome fell. Look at how Persia fell. That would never happen today. I hate to tell you, history always, like, nobody ever thought in a million years that Britain ever would be conquered, that Persia would ever be conquered, that Rome, who was given or like blessed by all the gods, right, would ever be conquered. But yet it was. And it's the same thing in this country. It's the same thing in your life. Because I guarantee you, we've all been there, right? Where we will get cocky, overconfident, and then what happens right after? We get our butts humbled.
You always can. In fact, there was an influencer that chances are she might have, been on the list to speak at Limitless Arena, but Jessie Lee Ward, who recently passed away a few weeks ago,
was on the list.
Was she?
They did a whole memorial for her and everything else. She's a great person.
That's really special, because I was just looking at some of my notes from last year, seeing her speak at $1 Million Mastermind in Dallas, and let's see, one of those events there. And one of the things that she said that I had in my note right here is that she said, the bigger the fall, the bigger the bounce. And so, if you're getting conquered, if you're just getting pummeled, if you're just getting drilled, if you're just getting, feel like you're failing, the bigger the fall, the bigger the bounce, the bigger the opportunity to be able to take that knowledge and information and renew that and rechannel that into your learnings and to overcome the mistakes that maybe you made in the past or whatnot, to come back bigger and stronger. Reminds me of, I'd imagine that if Ed Mylett spoke there, that he probably talked about the power of one more. Did he?
Yeah. He briefly talked about it. Ed Mylett was more talking about his son and why he kind of testifies to God to this day and everything, and how his son was able to achieve. Because for him, the game was all it was just a game. He didn't take it seriously, and it wasn't until he started taking it seriously that he started winning.
And that was in golf, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. He started winning all these championships and everything else, because he still remembers they were down like 9 or something, and then basically this guy says, "Hey, just go ahead of him and everything. It's very clear that John or whoever,
Eddie and Ed."
Yeah, he doesn't care about the game.
Yep.
It's like, and that's when he flew off the handle at him. It's like, don't you ever disrespect my son like that, blah, blah, blah. He's like, here you here, and we're going to win this. Okay.
Yeah. And it was like, it was, but who knows what would have happened if he'd be as successful as he is now, if that wouldn't have happened. Right. So if he didn't have that challenge, that turmoil.
Our kids and say, hey, it's okay. You fail. It's okay that you don't strive and that. It's okay if you don't do well. But it's like, hey, it's just a game. Like, brush it off and everything. And yes, that might be true in some principles. But the thing is you cannot apply that consistently. It's a phase of your life. It's just like seasons in a year, right? You use it to help say, you know what? I'm going to brush this off. It's just a game. But at the same time, I'm going to come back stronger. I was not prepared. I did not put in the work. And this was really a sign that I didn't put enough work. Because at the end of the day, the results always will speak for themselves. So if you don't get the results that you want, then that is everybody telling you and the universe saying, hey, you didn't deserve this. You didn't work hard enough for it. You didn't do that, or you didn't do it right. And it's not saying to work 120 hours a week or anything else, but it's saying that however you were doing it was wrong. It's the same thing when I do social media or anything else, and I get nothing. I recognize it's like, hey, this is part of the process. I'm just building content. I'm doing this other stuff. But I know that obviously I suck at some of this. I suck at communicating, and I need to get better at that. So what do I need to do? What verbiage, what kind of candor do I need to use to resonate with more people, to connect with those people, to actually be willing to have them listen? It's the same thing with this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? It's been a struggle. Not a lot of people listen, and that all the time. Sometimes we'll get a huge spike. And then I learn from those. It's like, okay, what caused that spike? What can I do to get more of that?
Right? Absolutely.
To get that more consistently.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, all the more reason to kind of go back and take the time to go to events like Limitless Arena or the Solopreneur event and things there, because it's there's so much value. And then you have people that be like, oh, well, I can't afford $200 or $300 a ticket, or I'm not willing to pay that for a one-day event and stuff. Why would I ever do that? Like, to me, it's like, well, would I be willing to pay $20 to see Ed Mylett speak all day long? Would I be willing to pay $20 to see Andy Frisella or Dan Fleyshman or any of those people all day long? The fact that they brought all those people together for one event and had the everything that they did, like, it's a no-brainer. Like, it's a massive ROI if you go approach it in the right way.
You actually learned, and we're willing to learn from it. Yeah, absolutely. But it was very intriguing too. So Russell Brunson has a lot of value, right? A lot of value in some regards to that.
Yeah. But, in fact, I was curious to what his what he was going to do, because he did a little Facebook stories like, hey guys, I'm getting ready for Utah and stuff. They gave me a big time slot. I don't even know what I'm going to talk about, but it's going to be great. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say here.
Well, the interesting thing is even though he provides a lot of value, almost half the arena walked out the moment that he came out.
Really?
Really.
They saw that as a good break time. Somebody that was safe to step out on and take a break for whatever reason.
Exactly. And so it's funny. And granted, a lot of people, like, you can actually gain a lot of success being very good at listening to very boring or disregarded people. Right?
And would you call Russell boring? I personally wouldn't call him boring, but would you call him boring? Like, people probably just don't know who he is. Number one, like, he doesn't have the name like David Goggins, right?
They see him more as a car salesman. I think that's really the issue. It's just because he talks extremely fast. His personality in general, it just comes off very, very salesy, right? And so, like, because you'll even go on some of his posts and everything, and he's like, oh, I don't trust anybody that talks that fast. I don't trust anybody that does that. And so his personality has rubbed people the wrong way, but it doesn't change that if you look at the results and everything of what he's built and with certain communities, it's great. It's been very, very profitable, very, very successful, and very good. And I mean, granted, a lot of his content is redundant because all he talks about is building sales, connecting, building the funnel and everything. And then he obviously had a whole bunch of salespeople there to be like, hey, you want to sign up for ClickFunnels? Great. And there is people that will, like, he luckily doesn't do as much as or as bad as like some of the Tony Robbins events. I actually stopped going to a lot of those just because they are just one sales pitch after another sales pitch after another sales pitch. And it just is exhausting and just, I feel gross after. Even though Tony Robbins is a great guy, I think he's gone way too much to have, like, even Dean Gracio and that, like, one of the conferences he did, it was just literally a giant sales pitch.
Well, Tony's opening up, or I don't know if he's opening up, but he's one of the headlining of Silicon Slopes this week. So, you know, Utah's had a lot happening in the past, you know, within 2 weeks here.
Yeah, if you can get him in a different conference besides his own, like, he provides a lot more value.
Yeah, that'll be it'll be interesting for sure. But I think I think that's good feedback, right? Being able to, you know, and I don't personally know Russell. I really like him. I like his content. I like his results that he's been able to do with ClickFunnels and build out what sounds like is a $300 million company. I like learning about a story of him, his year that he was about to graduate college. He asked his mom, do I need to go to the graduation? She goes, yeah, of course you do. But Mom, I've made $298,000 selling potato guns online this year. Do you think I really need to go graduate with a degree? And so, like, it sounds like he kind of finished college more for his mom than he did himself, because he found success in what he was doing. And so it's been kind of interesting that, you know, that half the audience would leave being like, oh, this is a safe one that I can skip and go take a break, where there's value in that, but, you know, that perception.
Well, it's because people don't care to learn. Like, they want, it's interesting. It's a very interesting paradigm that I talk about quite a few times, which is people, they like people that will coddle them and tell them how to be better and that everything's going to be all right. And here's how you execute, here's how you win at life, and blah, blah, blah. And they like listening to the very masculine, like, for example, Andy Elliott, extremely.
Oh yeah.
Like, people like that because he rubs against the grain.
Yeah. Was Andy there, by the way? Andy Elliott?
Yeah.
Was he? Okay.
He was there. He had his whole sales team there. He offered $10 million for anybody that recruited off his team, and was like, I will make that happen. I was like, watch. But I don't think he would ever pay out. That's the thing. Because the reality is all I have to do is show them, like, hey, because it's almost egotistical. He thinks that there's going to be zero turnover ever. But at the end of the day, I just simply do a pitch, and it's like, hey, who's the person that wants more? You've got a lot of value. You've gone through that phase. You've learned what you can from him. Now let's go out into the real world and see if you can execute on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
that's how I recruit those guys.
That's hilarious. It's interesting with all of this, because, like, you have completely different forms of energy, right? Like, David Goggins' energy is going to be different than Russell Brunson's, right? And same thing with, like, Russell compared to, like, Andy Frisella.
Bradley,
right? Like,
Ed Mylett, all of those guys are very, like, they have subtly different, but they're definitely a lot more
high intensity, high energy.
I think they're honestly better storytellers.
Right. And that actually, as I kind of look up on my bookshelf here, as you mentioned, storytellers, it's I was in New York.
Storytelling.
And it's probably one of the, it was actually Malcolm Gladwell. The information that he talks about in oh geez, I just forgot the name of outliers, I think is what it is.
Just summarize it.
Yeah, but basically, like I was in New York learning from this company called Corporate Visions, and they said everything in Outliers that Malcolm Gladwell talks about isn't new. He just told a better story. And I think you just nailed that point right there. Is they're great storytellers, and if you can tell that story that kind of picks up on a little bit of that emotion, that's going to help drive to some of that action. That's going to overpower some of those voices in your head, keeping you safe and in the harbor, so to speak. And that's what's going to compel you to then put yourself in that discomfort, take you out of that comfort zone, and allow you to make that difference in your life and achieve that ROI that you're looking for. But until you do, and you get behind that, it's really, really tough to overcome, but it's 100% possible to overcome. And you don't have to be the David Goggins or the Andy Elliott. You don't have to have veins popping through your forehead when you're talking to somebody, or, getting so passionate about it that people feel compelled to do it just because they don't want to, challenge whatever it is you're doing. Like, you have to get to that extreme. Some people it works, that Jillian Michaels approach from like The Biggest Loser, and yelling and in your face and everything. But then, you don't have to be those people on stage, but there's so much value. And I hope that everybody listening today has been able to get some of the value that you've been able to pick up and share with us, Cameron, in attending those conferences. I'll be at the Silicon Slopes conference later on this week. And whatever the conference is, take some time to go out and do that. As we started out, you were at the Solopreneur conference there, and you were able to share and kick that off, which I thought you did an amazing job. And I was able to take a little bit of time out of my day and join that yesterday, a little bit today. And there's a sales one tomorrow, that a track there that I'm going to go and listen to as well. And it's just little by little, I'm being able to consume some of this energy, some of this insight that someone else has learned the hard way and is willing to share that with me. I'll take that all day long so that I can help try to fast track my success as much as possible. Now, there's no fast track and overnight, get rich quick schemes here. But if I can learn some of those mistakes that you've learned from, and I can learn from that value that you're sharing, I'll take that all day long so that I don't have to make those same mistakes, but I can keep going in that progression.
Absolutely. And I mean, you can sit there. I think the biggest key, and that is if you can listen to boring people, first of all, and be a better storyteller, just by relaying and helping that message get out to more people, you'll be more successful just kind of naturally, right? Because you're more engaging, more everything else. The other thing is when you go to these conferences, you go for intent. So when I went to this conference, I went with the specific intent to get and see candor, because I already knew most of this content. But again, what I was looking for is how they're wording it, how they are handling themselves, how they are speaking, how they're engaging with the audience, how they are telling or setting the stage for their talks. Because that shows me how to engage, how to get a following, and what works to build that kind of a following.
Yep, 100%. And if you lead with intentionality of why you're doing that, as a professional sales trainer, I love having sales exchanges, sales experiences, and kind of like letting them happen as I go through, just so I can observe and see what people are doing great that I could pick up on, or doing not so great that I could also pick up on, and make sure that I'm not doing that same thing to my customers or people that I'm working with.
Absolutely. And I think that is one thing that, granted, you should always try to at least go to a conference a year or something to that effect, or some kind of self-improvement. And then you should be even weekly reading some kind of book or self-improvement document but every single time having the intent on what you're trying to gain out of it. It's the same thing with spiritual, right? If I go into something like that with the intent, like, hey, this is the area of my life I want to improve. How can I improve that? How can I have better, more meaningful relationships with others? How can I be more charitable? How can I do this, right? I get drastically better results because I'm actually looking for those answers. It's the same principle as when you buy a blue car, all you notice is blue cars.
Right. Exactly. Oh yeah, for sure. That's so true.
Exactly. So this is something that when you go with that intent and you have purpose and every action you take, instead of just like, I get it. When you are still trying to figure out life, you're lost, you have no clue. You will do a lot of things, and you should do a lot of things just for trying it. But that is the intent even then, is to try it just to see and gain value. And you're actually taking notes. That's the problem, is people will try a lot of things, but they won't really recognize or take the time to put notes on a piece of paper to say, what did I like about it? What did I not like about it? And then what can I find that has more things in that I do like, right? You're not going to find something that is 100% you like everything about it. But what you can do is, if I find a career that I like 8 things for every 2 I hate, that's a great odds, right?
Yeah.
That's a great principle. And I will be generally happy in the career, and I can make money in.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing. It's like, yeah, just, I know that you had pages of notes. I've got pages of notes. Like, it's, there's key takeaways of all this stuff. It's how intentional are you being in that effort. So yeah, great insights.
Well, and a lot of time, let's be honest, we won't read our notes, but when you do write it and you have to both process it and then process it out into a piece of paper, it helps you retain more of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Funny enough, after learning and that, if you can go take a nap or anything after extensive periods of learning, you actually retain a lot more of that, funny enough.
Yeah, put it into practice and get that winning mindset, and overpower that voice in your head that's going to keep you safe, so to speak.
Yeah. So if you do moments of rest, right? So this is why I believe in doing like physical exercise, then knowledge, then having intentional rest after that, so you can actually retain that data. Because what happens, even when you're having a conversation with somebody and it's somebody new, they give you their name. Mm-hmm. What happens when you have something immediately happen right after that? You forget that person's name.
Right.
Forget half of what you talked about and everything else. And you're like, hey, you just told me what your name is. I'm sorry. Like, what is it? And you feel embarrassed or silly or stupid about it. But that's why, is because you didn't take that intentional rest or that intentional pause to like, hey, how can I do that? The other thing that another speaker spoke about, where he'll actually go through the entire audience of like 500 people, and he'll go through and memorize every single person's name, and go through it, which is crazy. It's very awesome that he can do that, but it's because he's able to tie an emotion with the memory and figure out how to combine those two. Because that's, if you look at all your past, right, the things that are stored into long-term memory, that are triggered by a smell, by a touch, by a feel, or anything else that instantly brings up some of those old childhood memories or other things. Yeah. It's because those are stored into long-term memory based on the emotional and mental connection that both bridged at that point, right? So what can you do to do that even in your own life? Because that's how you will retain more information and be able to memorize that stuff. But I mean, we can go on and talk about all these different topics. But the reality is I think the biggest intent here in this podcast is, what can you do to get to that next level, that next step, that next process, and that. And granted, we've given you a lot in previous podcasts and stuff. I might not be the most charismatic person or the best storyteller at all, right? And so I know a lot of you don't listen to all of it. But I know that if you get good at listening to some of this, then you will see that value. You will be able to grow and be able to make massive differences in your life, your business, and everything else, which, I mean, I've built these things.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm the best at any of these things,
but you're out there doing it. And that's the commendable thing to me, is you're out there doing it. And as you do, you're going to get better and better. And same for me. Like, you're just out there doing it. And that's really what I applaud people in doing. It's like, you're executing on that. You know, we might not be up on stage or whatever at the Limitless Arena or whatever, but maybe someday, if that was a desire, but maybe not if that's not a desire, but who cares? The point is, in the middle of all this, we're out there doing it. And because of that, we're going to get results. And it's really kind of tying it back to the ROI here at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you guys joining us. Please, if you gain value out of this, if you got any tidbits, the other thing that I really want you guys to take away from this is go into every action with intent. Even if it's a simple network meeting, what is your intent? Is it to learn more about that person? Is it to see how you can enable them or serve them and everything to better? Is it to learn from them and see what you can do to gain value and everything and provide them value as well?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. If you don't, just chiming in on that is that I was talking to someone that is also going to attend Silicon Slopes this week, and they have a tech product. And so I was just kind of coaching them through of like, hey, if I were you, I would show up to the Silicon Slopes event with this intent. Whether you're going to sell the product, whether you're going to partner with somebody on the product, whether you're looking for funding for the product, that's your specific intent. Instead of just going and be like, oh, there's all these great speakers lined up, this is going to be fun. It's no, you have a mission. You have a pure intent of what you're trying to accomplish in having the right people in the room that you're going to be at.
Absolutely. Because if you don't have the intent, what happens is you get a lot of stuff done, but again, you make no progress on anything.
Yep.
So you have to go with every action with intent and everything. So if I don't see me being able to accomplish my mission or my goals at that time, I don't go. Even if it's to a conference, right? So yeah. I won't go because it's not worth my time. It's not worth the commitment because I can figure out other ways to accomplish the goal, right? And so sometimes, like, it's the same reason that I don't take vacations very often, because I only take vacations when I have the intent or I need to accomplish a specific goal to like have a mental rest. I'm overstressed. I need to do something in that to revitalize. It's usually when I'm making a lot of stupid decisions, frankly, and making a lot of calls that are costing a lot of money, both to myself, both to my employees or whatever else. I will intentionally take that rest and be like, hey, I need to step back from this. It's the same thing with trading. It's the same thing with investing. It's the same thing with all these other aspects. Whenever I start making a lot of bad calls and a lot of bad judgments, I will step back and sharpen my axe.
Yeah, exactly.
All my skills, revitalize, say, okay, now that I've had that moment of rest and recoup to that, what do I need to learn to fix this problem? What really is the root cause? That's that meditation and everything. And then what do I need to find? And now, once I have an executable plan, I come back and I'm ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. So for you guys out there listening, what are you going to do? What are you going to do to show up with intent so you can get to that point to be ready to rock and roll? Let's hear it.
Share the show.
Please do.
Share it. All right, have a good one.